Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep. Today we're talking about One Punch! More specifically, the one and only strongest man on earth. No, the other guy. Alright, hold up, scratch that. Maybe not the strongest, but he's definitely the most funny.
この俺が S 級ヒーローとしてのことなのか。
知ってるよ。キングだろ?
King is one of the best characters when it comes to laughs in One Punch Man, and there is an important reason why that will always be the case. We believe we have discovered King's power in One Punch Man, but for you to understand exactly what we are going to explain, you have to watch the entire video. Or if you are well versed in One Punch Man and all its lore, then the timestamps are in the description. So let's begin. Even though he's ranked 7, King is referred to as the hero's hero by most people. In fact, he has somewhat become the face of the Hero Association as the king of heroism and justice. Throughout One Punch Man, we get to hear about the countless monsters King has defeated, and in chapter 152, King finally showed his true strength. He used his final move, Ultimate Hellfire Burst Wave Motion Cannon. Using this move, King defeated both Platinum Sperm and Evil Ocean Water. Both of these are at least dragon level threats alone. But let's pause at this moment. We need to rewind time and explain how this is even possible. This was the first time in the manga's history that we got to witness King's attack clearly, which easily puts King's strength at the top echelon of heroes without any doubt.
Stop the cap.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a lie. Since King doesn't have any superhero strength as revealed in the second season of the anime, but you'd be wrong if you actually believe that as a fact, since King does have one superpower after all.
We do not care.
Looking at King's backstory, the most redeemable thing about him is the ability to be insanely good at video games. Like, really. I mean, this guy essentially lied about everything and lives off the millions that are provided to him for protecting people. He garners respect, validation, and love even though he doesn't deserve any of it. Before becoming the Earth's strongest man, King was what people would call a NEET. The term NEET stands for not in employment, education, or training. Yeah. The dude used to play waifu girl visual novels for most of his days. Not that there's anything wrong with that, you do you, but we all know the stereotypes surrounding that, right? That's why even King was ashamed of admitting it to Saitama. After a few incidents, this NEET found himself in the spotlight as a S-class hero, shivering and anxious at all times. Whenever King is in trouble, he does admit that he no longer wants to be a hero, but he doesn't have the courage to tell the truth. But in moments where he does want to admit the truth, something would happen that prevents it from being believed. However, Saitama and Genos are different. They know exactly what is going on. While Saitama doesn't care and values his friendship, Genos doesn't either because, well, Saitama, his sensei, doesn't. King's character and his immense secret power that everyone loves to talk about actually conveys a very important message in One Punch Man. Firstly, I'm pretty sure that everybody watching this video knows that One Punch Man is kind of a parody of superhero comics and manga. Whilst it may seem like King was simply thrown in for comic relief, the themes he expresses are very relevant to the world of One Punch Man. Firstly, King serves as the extreme opposite of someone who lives on one of the extreme ends of the world, Saitama. Saitama is the strongest human ever. He's literally boundless. Yet, at the same time, he isn't world famous. Nobody knows the guy who has saved them multiple times, but they know and love King, the one who takes Saitama's and others' achievements for himself. Both of them are great friends, even though the world's reaction to the two individuals is extremely unfair and juxtaposed. King is a satirical character. King's need for money, fame, validation, respect leads him to agree that he is the strongest man on earth, even though he has never fought anyone. This is a commentary on society and other heroes as well. The idea that a human can take pride in something that isn't rightfully theirs or earned. Yet due to the perception like Garo mentions, he will be rewarded by others. King always runs away from his responsibilities, just like many heroes who are more focused on marketing themselves in order to make a better living. These type of heroes are quite common in A, B, and C ranks. A ranked heroes are usually popular and like to maintain their fame whilst earning money through partnerships and deals. Take Sweet Mask for example. He acts all righteous but spends most of his day making movies. Why? Are monsters not on the same level as him? Isn't the Hero Association in a dire shortage of heroes? Why are those heroes spending hours and hours of their day on making movies, ads, and interviews instead of saving lives? The question is, what's more important, money and pride or the life of an innocent human? Furthermore, King also solidifies the inherent flaws in the Hero Association's ranking methods. Heroes like Saitama and Moomin Rider are never truly appreciated for their efforts, whilst most heroes simply work for points by forming groups such as Fubuki, and they only focus on saving people for their own merit. Therefore, the reason is pretty clear why King's immense power doesn't affect Saitama and Genos. It's because they are outside these themes and the realms of the rule for his power to actually activate, hence the name King. King's power has parameters that need to be fulfilled for it to work. One rule could be that society, heroes, and monsters believing in the idea of him being powerful, much like a faith. Even Saitama originally just assumes that King is very strong based on his reputation, and that whatever he is doing is because of that. He wonders if King bailed on the fight with that cyborg because it was boring to him. Saitama seemed kind of hopeful that he found someone who shared in his sentiment, but he realizes the truth and that faith is broken. As we all know, Saitama is limitless and he stops believing in King's reputation, which would then mean King's power can no longer work on him. Virtually anything King says or does gets interpreted through the lens of this is an incredibly powerful and badass man. Once you take this lens off, the truth can be realized and his power will not activate. One great example is when we see King playing video games, and when he's called by the Hero Association to deal with the sudden uprising of monsters, he tells them that he can't because he's fighting someone else right now. They assume he's actually fighting an actual real world threat. But since Saitama is a limitless person, he is bored of being a hero. For example, in season 2, Saitama went on a downward spiral, having an epiphany that life is meaningless. However, King arrives to save the day and gave him a speech that enlightened his mood. The message is clear that one's intentions must be clean to be selfless. King's power activates on those that are within his parameters of rules and perception. On top of that, the King engine isn't on when Saitama and Genos are around, meaning the power wouldn't be active. Therefore, this same analysis could be applied to Genos. To further prove this statement, let's go back to chapter 156. Platinum Sperm taunted Flashy Flash and others for fighting to protect their pride instead of saving humanity, linking back to the themes I just explained earlier. Through him, we can see the fair, normal people with no powers living. They never know when some monster is going to burn their house down or when two heroes may fight and cause widespread destruction. Even worse, a hero can decide that they're too strong to fight a monster and leave the innocent to fate. There's literally no guarantee that one would live to see another day. King embodies this hypocrisy by literally being a hero at the highest echelon of the association, and he reflects the spotlight of the arrogant, manipulative, and dark side of the Hero Association. Funnily enough, this doesn't stop us from just loving the dude. Like, I love this guy. Like, King is the funniest character of Saitama. But at the end of the day, everything I have explained all ties to King's power. His ability is tied to his backstory, and the reason he has those powers is because plot armor. And who else better to explain this power to you than plot armor themselves?
Alright, like Adil mentioned earlier, King is an important character in One Punch Man's philosophy. He is essentially our ever-consistent reminder that this world is scary. There are monsters, and a lot of them even have the ability to level entire cities. While we watch heroes like Metal Bat and Tornado fearlessly take on the greatest threats imaginable, it's easy to get lost and forget that these things are not normal, and King, specifically his internal monologue, is a constant constant reminder of that. And with that said, let's take a look back on some of the character's most insane moments, where we have no choice but to begin to wonder whether luck is really a coincidence in the case of King. The first example of King's power came in chapter 37, where while minding his own business, he would be forced into combat. A gross monster was causing chaos among civilians, glowing with confidence due to the fact that no one could stop him. That is, before he inadvertently forced King's hat off. And in doing so, he would reveal the face of the man who had now become his worst nightmare. The mere sight of King's face sent a wave of sweat running down his face. The monster immediately knew this man would be a problem, and he couldn't be more right. The crowd would then recognize King and begin to champion him. The monster now knew who was about to bring an end to his mischief. The presence of Earth's strongest man, King, was too powerful, and immediately the monster fell to his knees while the crowd cheered King on. Like a deity, King would now tower over the pleading, defeated monster. Victory was obtained without even lifting a finger. This only goes to highlight how dangerous and powerful King truly can be. Not many could end a crisis without moving a muscle or speaking a word, but despite victory having been obtained, the crowd would now hear the King's engine, the sound of the world's strongest man in battle mode, a sound that no monster has ever heard and lived to speak of. Now, the second example of King in action would be a bit less impressive, but that could be seen as an off day. In the end, the day was still saved by him passing on the challenge to another capable hero. Robots just might be King's one weakness. G4 was immune to his powers due to lacking a human heart and emotions. For King to be most effective, the battle has to be against something capable of feeling or being influenced. And so ones and zeros are like cheating when it comes to a battle against King. That being said, he did end up running away, but in his defense, I think even Superman would flee if he held Kryptonite close enough to him. That next day, when confronted by Saitama on his actions against G4, King would show what is likely part of his power. A demon threat level would be alerted, and before Saitama could even step out the door, through King's window came the massive monster. It flew straight to him as if he was a magnet for danger. He would even hear confirm that this power had been growing stronger recently, and that he had always been, in his own words, unlucky. Time and time again, King had been in situations where he was faced by a treacherous monster and survived. I mean, just take a look at the Monster Association arc. Luck had been on his side countless times while escorting Tadeo to safety. For example, his ability also allowed his dialogue to conveniently point out an invisible monster even though he wasn't aware of it. This saved their lives without him even knowing, which implies that his luck must be active at all times once the King engine is running. On top of that, not only does he survive the events, but the monsters end up being destroyed. Therefore, King himself does not understand his own power, but one thing is clear: there is something special about him. Something that once he understands, he will find even greater success with. Saitama too doesn't understand King's power and is asked why he doesn't get strong. Little does he know, if King were to do so, there may be no monsters left for anyone else. The sprawling list of King's many feats is very impressive, but as Adil mentioned, he recently had perhaps his greatest feat yet during the Monster Association arc. The battle was getting ugly, and right on time came the world's strongest hero, King. His presence would, as expected, freeze the many enemies. With an army on their side against him, the monsters still remained hesitant. His ability to plant doubt and fear is simply elite. King would doubt himself here, but in the end, he would stall the enemies long enough that Homeless Emperor would make a fatal mistake. Zombie Man would appear at the perfect time, and suddenly, the heroes were in an opportune position. Later, he would top this moment with Ultimate Hellfire Burst Wave Motion Cannon, and Child Emperor would even refer to this technique as King's limited time secret killer move. The massive blast of energy would seemingly be the reason for the defeat of both Platinum S and Evil Natural Water, and would further King's legacy. And to top it all off, this was all done in less than a second. However, it's not quite that simple. From here, we'll tag ABD back in for the reveal of King's true power.
Okay, so let's begin by understanding the basics of each of King's main abilities known to people. The King engine is arguably one of the most, if not the most iconic ability in the One Punch Man universe. People say that King's heart creates a rumbling sound, signaling that he is getting serious. This inhuman sound is enough to send chills down the spine of most monsters. In fact, a monster who tried to shapeshift into the Kid Waganma actually wanted King to lower his guard using his disguise to attack him. However, it had a heart attack and died simply due to King's immense pressure. It is an incredibly powerful ability, but in actuality, it's just King's heart pounding swiftly and loudly as a result of fear and anxiety. It is misunderstood as bloodlust because of King's fearsome appearance and reputation, thus making people fall under the parameters for his power to activate. Sometimes though, the King engine isn't enough, and so though he also has the King Face and King Hand to further scare the lights out of his enemy. Furthermore, King uses the King Hand where he simply walks towards his enemy and places his hand on their shoulder. Monsters, instead of seeing this as an opening, rather see it as a clear statement that the enemy is of no threat to him. For example, he literally has dragon level threats questioning their own decision, whilst against other heroes they are more affirmative with what they want to do. Look no further than his stance against the homeless emperor and black sperm. They became extremely wary of King as he looked down on them from a small cliff. This is the same combination, by the way, which was stated by Gyoro Gyoro to be invincible. Black sperm even felt that King saw people as nothing more than ants and approached King with a sense of respect. It's very obvious that King's ability adapts to the scenario he is currently in to suit him best to survive. For example, against the invisible monster, it was his word. Against homeless emperor, it was his stance. And against others, it's been his actions. In the webcomic version of One Punch Man, this also seems to be evident. The power activates when King gets nervous and anxious, which would activate his King engine. Atomic Samurai asked King to show his powers, and at that time, King did nothing, not even attempting to slice the apple with Atomic Samurai's sword. Even still, he came under immense pressure and a deep, hollow state, similar to Platinum Sperm and Homeless Emperor. This proves that King's power works on heroes just as much as it does monsters. Atomic Samurai thinks to himself and couldn't believe his eyes that he didn't catch the speed of King's move, assuming that he performed the task in 1/1,000,000th of a second, slicing the apple. But the reality was completely different. He actually did nothing. King decided to leave, assuming things would work out, and as they always do, his extreme look fixes the situation to maintain his reputation and those that believe it. The samurai assumed he was so fast that he couldn't see what he did, rethinking his entire life. This lets us know that the ability must be active when his King engine is on, otherwise why would it save him in this situation since his life wasn't actually in danger, right? Another piece of evidence from the webcomic that backs up this point is when King meets Bang at his dojo for training. After years of keeping his secret hidden and nearly being discovered by Atomic Samurai, King broke down and realized he couldn't take the burden of keeping it hidden any longer. As a result, he confessed to Silverfang, a retired S-class hero, and asked him to teach him. Keep in mind that King was only prepared to do this because he knew Silverfang was a smart, insightful old man, and he honestly felt that someone of his character who had been around him for so long had seen right through his facade and realized that he wasn't actually powerful. Silverfang had recently retired from the Hero Association, thus the odds of his secret being discovered by them was slim. King had run out of options and had no choice but to beg him to train him. In truth, King only went to the other martial art dojos because he was getting turned down at each one. For starters, Silverfang didn't realize that King was weak and thought he was as strong as some rumors claimed, so he assumed someone as good as King would be too good a fighter to learn something like his martial arts, which was designed for self-defense, and referred him instead to his older brother, Bomb, who specializes in a more offensive martial arts style. The same thing though happened when Bomb thought that King was too good a fighter to use his martial arts technique and recommended him to another martial arts academy. This happened again and again. Even if King did see Tank Top Master, based on what has transpired so far in the webcomic, Tank Top Master would most likely be modest and think that he isn't equipped to assist King to get stronger, instead offering him one of his own unique tank tops which he believes are a source of power. This must mean that King's ability must have another rule, that it cannot be overridden by other powers that he wishes to achieve, because if he did, the power of luck would no longer be on his side, since he would have become an actual hero that could deal with the issue himself. There's something very important to note at this point in the discussion. The author of the One Punch Man webcomic, One, stated that King will remain who he is and not gain any powers throughout the series.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, wait, before you start cussing us for clickbait, hear me out. While King won't gain any new powers, One never said that King is a normal human. In fact, One has stated that King has a passive ability of sorts. They also called it meta luck. Therefore, all of King's luck isn't the universe simply lining for him again and again for no apparent reason. All of this is happening because of his powers. Whilst he's unaware of his power, King can be considered to have the best ability in the series. But wait, so what in the God's name is King's engine? How is this man's heart beating louder than a home system and he's still alive? survive? Well, look. We brought Plot Armor to do this video with us for a reason after all. Anyways, this adds another layer to the moment where Child Emperor used a device he made to measure King and Saitama's powers. Both of the heroes got undefined as their power range, and Child Emperor argued that this was because Saitama was too weak and King was too strong. Since we know the truth behind Saitama's power, people automatically assume that King got undefined due to his lack of power. However, what if this was because King has a passive power instead? And I mean, is luck even measurable? One could say that King's power is too strong as well, since he had stated that he encounters major threats daily. So what does the scale show? Saitama and King are in the same echelon in a sense? Well, that's something more to think about. Anyways, all this makes me wonder, did King awaken this ability, or was it working all of his life? In my opinion, King awakened this ability later on in his life, or his meta look didn't work well in the past. From what we know about King so far, he was more or less a NEET before becoming the hero that people love so much. King has never mentioned that he was lucky as a child, even for smaller things. However, he did become the luckiest man on earth later on. There's a chance that King awakened this ability when he was in a life-threatening situation. He would obviously be powerless, so all he could do is hope to survive and wish that he was stronger. And so somehow King got blessed with extremely good luck, which led to all the events we've explained before. Gaining superhuman abilities is a weird phenomenon. There's no proper way to harness such abilities in the world of One Punch Man. However, it is known that the excess want, need, or even use of something may result in the creation of an ability. For example, Crablante, the first monster Saitama ever killed, stated that he became a crab after eating too many crabs. He seemed to be obsessed with them, even calling his own transformed upper body of a crab to be beautiful. In a similar way, Saitama achieved his limitless strength. He literally did 100 push-ups, sit-ups, etc. for 3 years and became the strongest human ever, even though many people might have worked harder than him. Saitama managed to break his limiter, probably due to his insanely strong determination to become a hero to save people. This is the exact same case with Garo, who is the only other human known to us who has broken their limiter. Both of these characters were extremely determined, are hardworking, and perhaps are extremely lucky as well. There isn't anybody else who has broken their limiter after all. Either way, King achieved his passive ability in the same way. He might have groveled and cried about how weak he is and how he wants to be on top of the hero world, etc. Our claim is further supported by the fact that Gyoro mentioned that monsters seem to gain exceptional power-ups whenever they experience near-death scenarios, and this is how Gyoro made Orochi into the strongest monster. In a similar way, King's near-death experience and his extreme desire for living well might have awakened his meta look, and it becomes stronger and stronger as the series moves forward due to him surviving even more events. But you guys let me know what you think. Let us know in the comment section. Also, massive thank you once again to Plot Armor for helping us out with this video. Make sure to check them out and we'll see you guys next time.